Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 48 of Nutanix Weekly. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. Right now, it's just Jaira and I, Jaira Cox. Jaira, how's it going?
Andy, how you doing, well, man? How are you?
Good. If we say Harvey's name 3 times, maybe he'll just show up. If we want to. We don't have to.
Love a good Harvey.
Well, you're not saying it, so you must not. No, I'm just kidding.
Usually, I think societally we're conditioned like to say it 3 times when they appear as like a for like a bad guy. But Harvey's distinctly not that.
It doesn't have to be a bad guy. Well, let's see. We'll get started, and he'll possibly show up a few minutes from now. I say that just because if you hear him start to speak out of the blue, it's not a ghost. It's the real Harvey. He's just running a little bit behind. Well, Jaira, we were talking beforehand, and you helped me pick this article. It's called Nutanix Support, Leading by Example 9 years in a row. I can tell you that every time I've ever had to work with Nutanix Support, it has been one of the better experiences I've had. I have, in several cases, well, in not a single case have I made it past the first guy. All other cases, I've been able to resolve the issue with the first person who picked up the phone, which is, especially if you've been in a world where you've been passed around, you go through several screening calls, you get with tier 1 support and get the, is it plugged in? Is it not plugged in? Is it turned on or not? Kind of, have you rebooted it yet? That can be maddening, especially when you're in a situation where you're not calling because you want to, you're calling because you have to at that point in time.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I love to hear that feedback from you. That's certainly, of course, what we aim for, but it's just, it's encouraging to me as somebody who, I have to represent this technology all day, every day. That's the goal, right? That's what the experience we want our customers and partners to have. And it's even the opening tag of this article, right? The direct quote is from a customer, as always, very impressive support, rarely need them, but the team was great helping us through this one and the help was appreciated, right? So that key of rarely need them, but when we do need them, it's great is of course what you aim for.
And nothing's perfect, but again, my experience has all been good. Most of my customers have been good. I had one customer that complained about Nutanix Support, which I thought was odd, but then in hindsight, I think maybe they were maybe they didn't come to the call with the right information either, and you can only work with so much.
That's fair. I mean, mind reading would be a fantastic skill. I'm sure how about this? I'm sure we hire all the mind readers we find, but that is unfortunately is basically zero. So yeah, need good info to solve problems.
Well, I was in Charleston, South Carolina this weekend. On the side of the road, there was a building that said open 24/7 mind reading. So maybe they can train them on Nutanix.
I mean, wouldn't a building like that, I assume you would just never need door locks, right? If I saw door locks there, I would have some questions.
Yeah, probably. All right, so help me understand what this article is really. North Face scoreboard. I've heard of what's the score, the support. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank at the moment, but the normal acronym used.
And NPS.
NPS score, yeah. Mm-hmm. This isn't talking about NPS. This is something different. The North Face scoreboard.
I believe it is different. Hold on, at the bottom it actually talks about that. It talks about the North Face Scoreboard Service Award alongside the 92 NPS rating for 2021.
Okay, so they're both corresponding, maybe not connected, but they're both measurements of how you demonstrate phenomenal delivery of service, is what it says here. Yeah.
This one, so we can use the acronym, right? The NFSB that the article does, because that's a mouthful. Talks about using a scale, right? In their case, out of 5, so 4.9 out of 5 on their index rating. So that's clearly, obviously, a very strong result.
And is that coming from? You know what? I should pause here and just point out. I mean, this is extremely important. If I'm going to talk to a customer about moving their workloads to a Nutanix platform, whether it's VDI databases or the whole data center, knowing that you've got somebody behind you to provide support when, not if, but when it's needed, is a huge part of the comfort factor in making those statements that that's what a customer should do.
Absolutely. When we have customers that make it part of their POC evaluation criteria, right, is we're going to call support, and see who answers, see how quickly they solve stuff. So yeah, it's absolutely a critical consideration, right, when you're making important decisions.
I'm a little embarrassed to say that in a POC or pilot scenario, I've never actually laid that out as a criteria, but it certainly should be one of the probably most pressing ones, because in that moment of urgency, you're gonna need that more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all relate to, in past lives having to, I've had to do it even like as a paid services delivery engineer, like open a case with a manufacturer on a customer's behalf, beg and plead for that first line person to like mark it with urgency. I need to call back, we're waiting on this. And, and that's it. You have to hang up, have to hope that it got processed, hope you get a call back quickly from somebody competent. And yeah, it's delightful to not have to have that be a Nutanix experience customers have, right? We aim for the opposite.
Yeah. Well, I like to address things head on. So Harvey, what's your best support experience with Nutanix?
Best support experience with Nutanix?
Oh, where'd you come from?
I mean, for me, it was I guess it was the first time that I called expecting support, right? What we expect as admins as support. And actually being on the phone with something that was pretty complicated and have somebody, the person who picked up the phone, actually handle it and show me something I didn't know.
Yeah.
And that made a huge difference for me.
You didn't go through 3 levels of call screening just to get to someone who knew what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's what I expected. But it didn't happen. Like the person who picked up the phone actually jumped in, started asking me questions. I'm just waiting on them to transfer it, and they didn't transfer it. And the guy actually, brought up, we did a screen share. He brought up the CLI for one of the controller VMs, and he started typing stuff in. And again, started out with like stuff I already knew, but eventually, maybe 5 or so minutes in, he starts typing things, and things start, going on the screen. I'm like, hold on, wait, slow down. What are you typing? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So to get from 0 to that within the same call, in under 10 minutes, to me was just like, okay, I've heard things about Nutanix support before, but this is actually serious here.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Podcasting pro, Harvey Green, ladies and gentlemen, just jumping in the deep end, doesn't miss a stroke.
Didn't miss a beat. And I can't highlight enough the idea that you care enough about the sport to put the smart guys answering the calls versus hiding them 3 layers deep and trying to bury them from getting tied up. It's an investment that's not taken lightly. So Jaira, what do we really want to call out beyond what we've called out here? I know there's a couple highlights here. What do we want to make sure we get across in this podcast?
The one that actually makes the most impact to me is it's both, of course, the headline, right? Winning this award, not just once, but our 9th time receiving it, right? So clearly like a recognition of a culture of quality support that we've built. But one of these awards that you can only win if you've won this 7 times in a row, right? Which is like amazing, right? So you can only, if you won the one award 9 times, then you get this other award that is like a 7-time consecutive like capper award, right? That they call out the summit classification, which is pretty cool, right? It demonstrates the real consistency there to be not just better than something else or a less painful experience than XYZ, but really that desire to be best of the best, like best support experience you've ever had.
Yeah. Well, and that is a huge highlight, to highlight the number of years and the fact that you can only be in rare company to get to that point. Does it talk about, and I don't see it in the article, how many other people have ever won the award that many times?
I don't know. It might be I don't see that called out. It might be a little embarrassing to our competitors, which happens.
Yeah. Well, I guess we could just Google and see how many times. Maybe the NFSB, maybe the organization, maybe it has them listed. It's easy enough to find. I'll have to go check that out.
Very true. But yeah, the words also as well that you were seeing up there that it calls out around service award, right? Highlighting the high NPS, right? 92, which is just fantastic. We say that a lot, and we don't often iterate enough for customers that don't deal with NPS day in and day out, that's on a negative 100 to positive 100 scale. It's not 0 to 100 like you would think. So you can actually have a negative NPS. Maybe calling, like you were trying to call support before we started this call, Andy, that kind of like mass faceless multinational call center support. That's when you get into, the negative NPS territory there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it doesn't just happen, right? It takes a lot of intentionality to achieve 92 NPS there, but then also the subsequent awards that validate commitment to continuous learning and education for teams that deliver the service, right? Making this a great place to work. And then a whole separate workplace validating, like that Voice of the Employees award that calls out the employee-centric work environment, And so shout out to our support teams, right? It's been an interesting couple of years for literally everyone in technology the last couple of years, but you can imagine support as well, right? Going from a culture of, I can go on mute, I can ask somebody else, I can send somebody a message to, hey, come look at my screen, help me solve this. Doing that from home is a whole different kind of day in, day out challenge and change to your routine compared to, all of us that just went from, conference room and whiteboard to Zoom and digital whiteboard. So complete shout out and hats off to our support teams. This doesn't just happen.
I mean, not what you would define as like a healthcare essential worker, but certainly an essential worker in terms of keeping the lights blinking.
100%.
Yeah, it's funny you brought up me being on a support call when you jumped into the Zoom before we got started here. Mine was with the local marina here, which I needed to talk to their accounts payable people, and I think the forklift driver was the one who answered. So I was stuck on hold for a little bit.
All hands on deck.
What also calls out here 2021 Gartner Peer Insights Customers Choice Vendor for Hyperconverged Infrastructure for 3 years in a row. We're winning support 9 years in a row. Just another accolade there as well, right?
For sure. I believe that one, is actually sourced directly from customer feedback, right? So Gartner normally is like a analyst centric, which has its own value for sure, but then also polling customers directly, right, is also a fantastic award to win.
Well, I think if you just kind of pile all this up, you're really talking about Nutanix being the inventor of the hyperconverged space and owning the space and continuing to invest in being the best at it all these years. I think that's really what we're talking about here.
I think that's definitely part of it, right? I think that's for sure the technical, the nuts and bolts of it. I think there's like an intangible cultural add-on, right, around the desire to make a product that still has customer delight, that still has, dramatic ease of use, that has, the built-in stability, self-healing kind of fabric that wants to make you need as few support calls as possible, but when you do have to make them, right, make them a great support experience.
Yep. Well, guys, I think we've covered it, and we can move on to the rest of the day. Harvey, anything around Nutanix support that you would highlight for a group of listeners?
Happy employees make happy customers.
And partners as well, right?
That goes for both. That certainly goes for Nutanix, goes for partners, goes for IT departments too. Like you have customers too, and happy employees make for happy customers.
Absolutely.
Well, here's the other part too. I mean, we're talking about the infrastructure that everything else runs on top of. If that's not happy and supportable, and if that environment's not where it needs to be, and all the ecosystem that supports it's not where it needs to be, then a lot of other stuff runs downhill.
Yep. Look, I got you saying one of my favorite words.
All right, guys. Well, enjoy the rest of your Monday, and appreciate you jumping on and talking through this.
Cool. Thank y'all.
Yep.